So what happens when one of the biggest home builders in the country runs into a massive economic storm? Well, they don't just hunker down and wait for it to pass. Nope, they pull out the blueprints and literally start redesigning the entire company. Today, we're going to break down exactly how the housing giant Lennar is navigating this super turbulent market by, well, completely remaking itself. Let's dive in. Okay, so here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with the storm itself, all the headwinds hammering the market. Then we'll get into Lennar's new three-part blueprint for not just surviving, but thriving. After that, we'll look at how that plan is actually playing out in the real world. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at what the future holds, both the good and the bad. All right, let's set the scene. For the first quarter of 2026, Lennar's own executive chairman called the housing market stubbornly challenging. You know, that's not the kind of language you use lightly. And, of course, the numbers really tell the story. Just look at their report card. The company missed what analysts were expecting for both revenue and earnings per share. Now, that right there immediately tells you the kind of pressure they're under. But you gotta understand, this isn't just about Lennar. It's an industry-wide storm. I mean, the challenges are coming from every direction. You've got these stubbornly high mortgage rates that make affordability the #1 problem for buyers. At the same time, the costs for everything, materials, labor, they just keep creeping up. Throw in some global uncertainty and the fact that big institutional buyers are pulling back, and yeah, you've got yourself a perfect storm. So what do you do when you're faced with that kind of reality? Well, Lennar didn't just sit around waiting for the market to fix itself. Instead, they got to work and developed a really clear, deliberate plan to adapt to this new normal. And their plan really boils down to 3 core ideas. First, keep building at a steady, consistent pace. Think of it like turning a construction site into a finely tuned manufacturing plant. Second, get way leaner by owning less land. This is their whole asset-light model. And third, use technology everywhere they can to slash costs and just make buying a home a better experience. The bottom line here, it's all about taking control in a market that feels completely uncontrollable. Now, having a plan is great, but it's all about execution, right? And this is where it gets interesting, because this new blueprint is already delivering some, well, pretty dramatic results. So first, let's just make sure we're all on the same page with this asset-light thing. It's a huge shift. Instead of spending billions buying up land and then just sitting on it for years, Lennar is moving to more of a just-in-time model. They control the land they need through options and partnerships, but they don't carry all that cost and risk on their own books. They're basically going from being a land developer to a pure home manufacturer. And to really get a sense of just how big this change is, get this. Only 2 years ago, Lennar had something like $20 billion tied up in its inventory. That is a massive amount of cash just sitting there on the balance sheet. And now? Today, that number has been cut almost in half, down to $10.5 billion. I mean, that is just a stunning transformation. It's the asset-light strategy in action, and it's freeing up billions in cash while massively reducing their risk. But this whole strategy isn't just a financial game. It's completely operational. See, owning less land only works if you can build on it incredibly efficiently the moment you get it. And they're doing it. By focusing on that manufacturing-style consistency, they've actually managed to cut their direct construction costs by a remarkable 12% over the last couple of years. They're also building faster than they ever have before. In fact, they just set a new all-time company record, getting a single-family home built in just 122 days. Think about it. Speed reduces costs and gets that cash back in the door that much faster. And all of this leads to what might be the most important metric of all for efficiency: inventory turn. They are now turning over their entire inventory 2.5 times a year. That's a 47% jump from the year before. That is a massive, massive operational gain. This quote from their executive chairman, Stuart Miller, just sums it up perfectly. He says, "We are not nostalgically waiting for the market to reset. Instead, we're adjusting ourselves to the way things are." You see, this isn't just some temporary fix for them. It's a permanent change in who they are. From an old-school home builder to a super efficient, tech-savvy manufacturer that's built for the world we live in today. So, okay, the strategy is clearly working. But that storm we talked about, it definitely has not passed. So let's look at the road ahead, because it's a mix of some pretty serious challenges and some really interesting opportunities. All right, so the headwinds, the risks, they're pretty familiar at this point, right? You've still got the high mortgage rates, rise in costs, and all that uncertainty. Those are still major risks for sure. But, and this is a big but, there are some really powerful tailwinds pushing them forward. First off, the US has this massive housing shortage that's going to take years to fix. Because of that, you're seeing more attention from policymakers than ever before. And maybe most importantly, there's just this huge wave of pent-up demand from buyers who are basically just sitting on the sidelines, waiting for things to get a little bit better. Which really leaves us with this final and, I think, crucial question. Lennar has proven that it can make itself more efficient, more resilient, but can one company's big shift to a manufacturing mindset and a lighter balance sheet actually start to solve the much, much larger puzzle of housing affordability in America? Honestly, that's the billion-dollar question that's going to shape the future of housing for all of us for years to come.